today's first one, you are supposed to list the intercepts and test for symmetry. Mostly, I just wanted to remind you what being symmetric meant. It means when you plug in a negative, that you're looking to see what changes. I don't know that you really need me to do all of these, but for me, when I see that both x squared and y squared are in the problem, do you agree that it's going to be symmetric with everything?
Yeah.
Because if x and y are both squared, that means when you plug a negative in, yeah, nothing's going to change. It's going to always be the same. So the reason I picked these two, maybe because that's what's on your final, is that those are circles. And when they're circles, they're symmetric with everything. So without even doing the test, I could tell you that both of these are symmetric with the x-axis, the y-axis, and the origin. That one is not symmetric with everything because it's not all squared. Yes, everyone's taking it, and everyone's getting it for a grade.
No, I know that, but are we getting graded the same as our test?
Yes.
Why? I'm not taking it anymore.
But it's still going to be out of the same points, right?
You just grade it like you do your test?
No.
Why? That's dumb. Why? Because I'm not taking it.
I know, but I'm not going to have two separate grading scales for the same class. Whether you're choosing to take it, whether you're getting the credit from Ivy Tech or not, like I'm going to grade it the same way. No, what's fair is that the grade that you get on your report card is not the grade that goes to Ivy Tech. That's what's fair, because the grade that gets on your report card is only tests with 100 points of homework. So that means that's why you're not taking the Ivy Tech class, because that grade's not so good. But your grade in here is all the grades together. Because what I could do and be super mean is I could make the grade that you get in here be the same grade that you would get in the Ivy Tech class. But I don't do that for the people that aren't taking the Ivy Tech class. No. No.
Wait. How would that be mean if you made our grade in here be the same grade as our?
Because if you're failing the Ivy Tech, if you fail this class, you can't drop it.
But if you're passing this class and you're failing Ivy Tech grade.
Never mind, Becca, you weren't paying attention to the first class story. Just forget about it. Move on.
I'm confused.
Again. Oh, I get it now. It clicked. Got it.
But we'll figure it all out. Like the Ivy Tech final grade, the grade you get on this, that's your final exam grade. But what we're going to do in here is it's only going to count for part of your final exam, and then you're going to have another thing that goes with it. So that if you fail this Ivy Tech final exam, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fail the final exam for the South Putnam part of it. No, it's not. You're not listening. Just don't worry about it. It's not graded differently. Oh my gosh.
No, you said you have more grades.
Yeah, like I'm saying, we're all taking this, and the grade that...
Saying that half of
I don't even know why I'm recording this.
you're recording.
Yay, we're recording. Hi.
Megan requested that I record it. So
Hi, Megan.
that she's going to be like, what in the heck is going on? You're just... Because all they're going to hear is me yelling and no one else. Yes.
Will you tell Megan
The grade that you get on the final exam in this class is not the grade that's going to go on your report card for a final exam. But whatever you score on this, I'm grading it the same way Ivy Tech would grade it. But your final exam that I'm going to put in the grade book for South Putnam is only going to be part of this, plus there's going to be something else. Whereas if you were just taking Ivy Tech, you only get the final exam grade. Follow me? So it's okay. It'll all be okay. On this one, you have to actually know what you're checking. And if you're checking for x-axis, you're checking that if you change the y, right? So that's x stays the same, but you change the y. So that works on this. So that one is symmetric with the x-axis, because if I plug in a negative y, it works. That's the only one that 55 is symmetric with, because if you change the x as negative, it doesn't work. It also asks for intercepts. I feel like maybe we should know how to do intercepts pretty easily. How do you find the x and y intercept?
Take the opposite, right? Like if you're finding for x, you plug y in. So, I mean, if you're finding axis, you plug in 0 for y.
Yeah, you just plug in 0. I really pick these for symmetry more than intercepts, but intercepts are just when you plug in 0 for x or y and solve for what's left over. So like on this one, if you plugged in 0 for y, you would get x equals -4. That's an x-intercept of -4, y is 0. You could write it like this, you could write it like this. If you were finding the y-intercepts on this, you actually get two answers, because you get y squared equals 4, so you would get y equals plus or minus 2, which is why it's symmetric, because you get two answers. That would be like 0 plus or minus 2. You don't have to graph these, but that's how you do x and y-intercepts. Questions about that?
Do we have to write it like in the...
No. You can just say,
like y equals?
No.
okay? Story problems, we've definitely had a lot of story problems throughout this year, and people hate them the most, but they are the ones you're going to see. And this one just says a truck rental company rents a moving truck for 1 day by charging $29 plus 20 cents per mile. Write a linear equation that relates the cost C in dollars of renting the truck to the number X miles driven. So the cost C is equal to what?
Plus 0.20x, right?
Because there's $29 no matter how much you drive, and then it's 20 cents per mile, and they say X number of miles.
That's actually really cheap.
Sometimes they, a lot of places though don't charge you per mile anymore. Like, well, I mean, when I had to rent a car for, because I had a car accident, it was just like $25 a day or $30 a day, unlimited miles. Because I was just graduated college and I was taking my first grad class, and so I was driving to work every day in Crawfordsville and then driving to Terre Haute every day and back. And I was like, when I rented the car, I was like, is there a limit to how many miles I can put on this? And she's like, nope. And then when I returned it, she's like, wow, you really drove a lot. And I was like, told you. Because I was driving an insane amount every day. Yeah. Sometimes on your test, they just ask you to write the equation and not do anything. But sometimes they could ask you to solve for something too. And this one says, what is the cost of renting the truck if you drive it 110 miles? And what would you do? Where would you plug 110 in? Yeah, because that's miles. So that would be 29 plus 20 times 110. And then they also ask you for 230 miles. And you would just say 29 plus 20 cents times 230. And you get some number of answers there, right?
That's not a bad one.
It's not a bad one. $51. That's a lot of money to rent a car for 1 day.
But if that's all you're driving, like if that's 10 miles, like 110 miles and 230 miles, like if that's all you drove.
Yeah, like maybe it's a moving truck. Do they charge per mile? I've never rented one of those. At Home Depot, if you buy something, you can rent a truck for $19.95 if you only have it for 2 hours. You get 2 hours. And if it's over 2 hours, they charge you a lot more.
What? The truck?
At Home Depot, like if you need a truck to take your refrigerator home in,
I hope you
can
live
rent it.
close.
Deliver it for you.
or you have, I know, but what if you want it that day? You can rent the truck.
So you have to drive it?
Yeah, it's just like a
And then
regular
it's like
truck.
what-
I mean, it's not like a semi truck.
That's what it.
That's what I thought you were talking about. And I'm thinking, and what if no one what if someone's only had like a little smart car?
It's not something you need a special license for.
That's what I'm thinking about, like, people who rent U-Hauls.
Yeah, especially the really big ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it's up to a certain length and a certain weight that you just need a regular license for. Like I'm pretty sure almost all the U-Hauls you don't have to have a special driver's license for. But you're right, if you're not used to driving it, you have to be very careful with
I
that.
seen that lady that, kind of scary. She had like the truck, and then she had the wagon. The wagon, pulled behind, and it was like, it was going down to Florida. We passed her, and there's some old lady. That's just not right.
Direct variation, inverse variation, maybe there was joint variation. I picked these because there's definitely a question on there that you have to write an equation with, so I just tried to pick a couple of these. It says the cost of roasted almond varies directly with the number A of pounds of almonds purchased. So directly means you multiply. The whole idea of variation is there's some constant that we usually call K. So if I was writing this equation, I would say C varies directly means K times the other number. So that's what I would write. C equals K times A.
We never know K though, right?
Well, yeah, you have to use what they tell you to find K. And so it says if the cost is $23.75 when the number of pounds of roasted almonds is 5, find an equation to relate the cost to the number A of pounds of almonds. Which means they give you enough information to solve for K, because they tell you the cost is $23.75, and they tell you that that's when A is 5. So you can solve that for K, not divided by K, divided by 5.
Like, oh, but just don't play this. Positive game.
And normally K is not a very nice number, but this one's not so bad. You get 4.75. So write an equation to relate C to A, which means find K. So you would get C equals 475 times A. And then it says, then find the cost when the number of pounds is 3.5. So now if you know K and you know that there's 3.5 pounds, do you agree the last step is you're just going to multiply those? The hard part about this is, 1, you got to remember what direct and inverse variation mean. And then 2, it's always a 2-step problem. Step 1, write the equation. Step 2, solve for K. And then I guess normally step 3, then solve for what they're asking. And so you just got to remember that it's kind of a layered problem in there. But the correct answer to this would be, how much are we talking about money here? So I'm going to round to 2 decimals. 1663 is the answer to that. Sometimes they just make you write the equation. So we'll look at your Unit 2 test. There was one of these on here that I would say you would mark as one to look over. So 29, I picked an inverse relation one just to remind you about that. It says, suppose that demand for candy at a movie theater is inversely related to its price. Inversely means that it goes on the bottom. So this would be demand equals K divided by price. And so it's really important that you know that, and that'll probably be one of those things the day before the exam, one of those last minute review things I remind you. Direct means you multiply, inverse means you divide. You have to know that.
You say that right before you do it.
No, the day before, that's it. If you get that right, then it's just plugging it in. When the price of candy is $2.75 per bag, so that goes on the bottom, $2.75. The theater sells 156 bags. That's the demand. Express the demand for candy in terms of price, which means, again, they're not saying solve for K, but that's what they mean. Write an equation where you can solve for K. What would you do to solve that? 156 times 275 is 429. So the answer to part A should be demand equals 429 divided by P.
I want to know where they're getting their candy at.
I know that's way more expensive at our movie theater.
Yeah. And they definitely don't sell no 156. I've worked at one.
And now part B, using what we found in part A, determine the number of bags of candy that will be sold if the price is $3 a bag. Where are you going to plug 3 in? For P. So the demand is just going to be 429 divided by 3, which happens to be 143 bags. Which means the reason it's inversely related, the higher the price, the less they're selling. Which should kind of make sense, right? Okay, supply and demand. Moving on. I really don't want to work all this out, but I will tell you that there's a question like this on your exam where they make you do the f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. I'm definitely not doing both of these because it's the same process, but if you did not get these to work out, I cannot stress how much you should just go back. It's just doing the algebra of it. I can't even read this. Does that say minus x here?
Yep.
So just remember, if you're doing f of x plus h minus f of x all over h, you just have to replace x with x plus h. So you get x plus h squared minus x plus h plus 4. That's f of x plus h. Minus f of x means I'm going to subtract everything here, which I'm just going to leave it as this parenthesis right now. Minus x plus 4.
Did you get to that? I mean, how did you? I really struggle with like looking at this and trying to.
This is what the directions say to do. Right, that's the directions. Do this is the directions. So that's where I got this from the directions.
Yeah.
f of x plus h. Just like if it said find f of 3, you should know that means everywhere there's an x, you replace it with 3. I'm doing the exact same thing, except for I'm replacing it with x plus h. So x squared becomes x plus h squared. Minus x, I'm replacing x with x plus h, plus 4 stays the same. That is this part. And then I'm subtracting f of x. If this is f of x, I'm just subtracting the whole thing. I put parentheses around it because I'm going to go back and distribute. And then I'm going to put all of that over h. So it's, people get freaked out by this, but remember, it's just like do it a step at a time. Okay? And then it's just working it out, and that's where people make mistakes on it. I don't remember, I really don't want to memorize this final exam too much because I don't want to, you know, be like, this is exactly this question, and it's this, and it's multiple choice, and this one's not multiple choice, because I don't feel like that's very fair to people that don't have teachers. I would think this one's probably not multiple choice, but it could be multiple choice, and it still would take work because you'd still have to work it out to get what the answer is, right? Because you have to FOIL all this out. What should happen is everything without an h is supposed to cancel out. So if it doesn't cancel out, then you know you did something wrong. But if you FOIL this out, you get x squared plus 2xh plus h squared, distribute by negative, minus x minus h plus 4, distribute this negative, minus x squared plus x minus 4. And then you get to cross stuff out. X squared minus x squared. Positive 4, negative 4. Negative x, positive x. If all of your stuff without h's does not cancel out, then you know you did it wrong, because it always happens. So what you're left with, you can factor an h out of, and you get 2x plus h minus 1, and then you can cross the h's out, and that's your answer. 2x plus h minus 1. That's like almost calculus that we're doing right there. Almost. The calculus part would then be take the limit as h approaches 0. We know what that means. But.
Obviously, you take it to 0.
But that's the process on that, right? So I just wanted to remind you of it.
Oh, I could rely on that.
What?
I could rely.
Sort of. What we're really finding is the derivative. That's the definition of a derivative right there, kids. If you do the limit as h approaches 0.
Come on, Nathan, get on our level. This ain't rocket science.
This is terrible. What parts were you supposed to do on this one? 22 and 23. A, B, and C. What are the intercepts? What's the domain and range? Where is it increasing, decreasing, or constant? I wish the copier wasn't so crappy. What? Was it just A and C, or A through C? I think it was A dash C.
Oh,
Maybe?
I did that too. A through C. They don't want anything.
It's alright. Domain, on 22, I tried to give you two different ones, because on 22, you agree that the domain stops, like it doesn't go on forever. Like it's only, the domain is just the x's. It starts at -3, it ends at 3. So the domain is very restricted. It's only the numbers from -3 to 3. And so how could you write that? You could say bracket from -3 to 3. That would be the domain.
Why was the bracket not the parentheses?
Because the 3's are included, right? It's a solid circle.
I thought that was parentheses.
No, parentheses means not included. Or you could say everything greater than or equal to -3, less than or equal to 3. If it's a multiple choice question, you would just be picking the right one, right?
But when we do the infinity sign with the parentheses.
Because infinity is never included, because infinity is not really a number, it keeps going on forever. That's why infinity has parentheses. Because infinity is not really included. Because you can't say infinity stops.
I'm sure someday.
What? Okay.
The range of this is the y values, and it goes from 0 to 3. So I would say 0 to 3, or you could say everything in between 0 and 3.
I don't know why, but when I do teach, I can't put line.
I almost put X there. Increasing, decreasing, or constant. I feel like you watched a video over this the day I was gone. Like you learned this from me on a video. But increasing, decreasing, or constant, you look at it and you kind of think about where the graph is going. Down is decreasing, up is increasing, flat line is constant. But you need to give me intervals on the x-axis, because what keeps happening is people keep missing this because they give me y intervals. The intervals where it's decreasing would be where you could think about going from left to right if you were going down this line. Do you agree that this is decreasing and this is decreasing? Yes? We write that in interval notation. So it is decreasing from -3 to -1. -3 to -1. This is where I would count parenthesis or bracket. I say parenthesis because at -1, I say it's not decreasing. I say it is stop. But if you use brackets, I would have had it wrong. I don't know. In calculus, we always say either use all parentheses or all brackets, and it doesn't really matter. So I don't know. I don't know. You could just do either one. Here we go. We'll just show the brackets.
And you know that.
But negative 1 is not included.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know.
Oh, is it?
It's not an open circle, is it? It's not an open circle. It looks like it, but it's not. And then we could also say from 0 to 1. No y values here. From 0 to 1. I just hate on myself. I have to do parentheses.
I do too.
And then this one is increasing where it's going up. So it will be increasing from -1 to 0. Again, x values. And from 1 to 3.
So were those supposed to be brackets?
I think they should be parentheses, but if you put brackets, it's okay. Here's the thing. If it was a multiple choice question, they're either going to be all parentheses or all brackets. Like, it's not going to be, like, one is the exact same as the other, except for one's parentheses and one brackets, because it's, either way is acceptable. Does that make sense? If it was an open-ended question, I would count brackets if you put brackets and I put parentheses. Number 23 is very hard to see on here, but it looks like this. What's the domain of that function?
All real numbers.
It goes on forever. The domain, we could say, is negative infinity to infinity. What about the range? Is it all real numbers?
No.
This is definitely like going down to a horizontal axis for 0. I would say this is 0 to infinity, 0 not included. Is this one increasing, decreasing, constant? The entire time, right? So you could say it's increasing over its entire domain, or I would say it's increasing from negative infinity to infinity. Just remember, increasing, decreasing, constant are x values. What? How come it won't be decreasing? Because you're always going up. Like, if you drew a little guy on here, do you agree it's always going up? Like, it's just always increasing. Even odd or neither, I think there's a multiple choice question about that also. Do you remember that? It's all about symmetry. Even, I always think about is like x squared. An even function is if you could fold it over the y-axis and it's the same on both sides. Are either one of these even? Yeah, because you could take this and fold it over. So just remember, even is like x squared. Odd is like x cubed. And if you remember what x cubed looks like, it looks like this. Do you remember that? Yeah. Odds if you could take this and fold it over like diagonal and it would match up. Are either one of these odd? And sometimes it's neither. Neither means you can't fold it either way. Like it's not symmetric with the origin or the y-axis. So that one's even, this one's neither. So again, not that bad to do, but it's just kind of vaguely remembering how to do that.
We had to do that?
No, just kidding. That was D. But. I don't know. Probably not.
What number is that?
20. It was 22 and 23. Oh, I don't know. This is not the test. This is this, probably. 47 and 48 say find the absolute maximum and absolute minimum. There's a difference between absolute and relative or local. I didn't pick any ones with the local ones, probably because that's not on your test. Absolute means the highest or the lowest number. So on 40, whatever that is, 45, what is the highest value? So the absolute maximum is the highest value, the y value. The maximum is 4. And if they ask for where it occurred, you could say at x equals 1. But if they just ask you for the maximum value, it's the y value, not the x value. And the absolute minimum is the lowest value. And on this one, do you agree the lowest value is 1? Seems very straightforward, right? What's tricky about it? Look at 48. What's the highest value on 48?
48, I thought it did no.
Wasn't it 48 that you did? It was supposed to be 48. So, you might want to say 4 is the maximum on this one, right? But that's an open circle. So does it ever actually get to 4? It gets really close to 4 though, right? Like, would you say 3.9 is a maximum? What about 3.99? Is that closer to 4 than 3.9? What about 3.99999? Is that closer? What about 3.9999999999999? Can you say that there's a maximum on this one? No, because you could keep getting close to 4 without ever getting there. So the answer to this is there is no maximum on this graph. So just be aware that if it's not included, it might not have an absolute maximum. So that's the trick to it. What about the minimum on this? Is there a minimum? Yeah, because this one's also not included, but that's not the lowest point. The lowest point is down here. So I would say that the minimum on this graph is 1. So just be aware that's where they can trick you. If you say the minimum is at 0, 1, I think that would be okay. Multiple choice question, I don't think they're going to write them as order pairs. They're going to give you just a number. Okay?
Do you delete your videos every year?
Of YouTube? No, they're all there if you want to go find them.
I think next year when I'm taking this class, I might be able to watch it.
On this one, I just gave you this one just to remind you. I hope that you know these shapes. I'm just going to go through and say these. I'm not going to write them all down, right? Number 9 should be a quadratic, which apparently they're calling a square root function. So I guess I'll write them. I think that should be C. Number 10 is a constant function, which is A. Number 11 is half of a parabola. That's a square root function. That's E. A V-shaped graph, that's absolute value, that's G. Identity function, that's the one that just looks like a straight line, I think, B. S-shaped graph is a cube function, D. Asymptotes is a reciprocal function, which is F. Sideways S is cube root function, which is H. So you need to know every single one of those? No. But you should know them. Like, you should be aware if I gave you a graph that you would know what it looks like. So I just kind of picked that just as a quick little review for you. Hopefully that wasn't that bad to do. But you do have some graphs that you have to do on this test on the open-ended part. And so maybe a big hint that the only 2 graphs I gave you from this unit that you had to graph by hand were square root functions probably means that's the one you have to graph on the test.
Those are the only 2.
Well, in this unit. Right, but we also graphed logarithms and like and other stuff. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head, but later maybe. But I'm not.
Don't tell me how to graph.
Just so you know, if this was the Ivy Tech class, you would review one day and then you would take your final the next day, just so you're aware.
Okay, but we're not Ivy Tech.
I know, which is why you should be happy that I'm letting you review this much without telling you exactly what's on the test. You can use transformations on this, or if you just know the shape, and you know you can't have a negative under your radical, you should be able to pick some points here. Like if you picked -1 and 0 and 3 here, that should be enough to get you a really good graph, because negative 1 plus 1 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1, 3 plus 1 is 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. Could you pick more points than that? You could, but if you know the shape, you shouldn't need to pick that many points. Negative 1, 0, 0, 1, 3, 2. Remember that that number underneath there means it's moved back 1 using transformations. So then 53, I picked a little harder one where there's more stuff to do. But I can tell you by looking at this, I know the minus 2 underneath there means it's moved to the right 2. The plus 1 on the outside means it's moved up 1. The 2 in the front means it's stretched. Definitely, I would still make an XY chart, but use your transformations to help you. You get to use a calculator on this, which means you could pick not perfect squares and get decimals. But for me, I'm always going to pick ones that give me nice numbers. I can't take a negative number in there, so I know that 2 is going to be the smallest number I could pick, because 2 minus 2 gives me 0, 0 plus 1 gives me 1. It's moved right 2 up 1. If I pick 3, 3 minus 2 is 1, times 2, 2 plus 1 is 3. And if I pick one more, let's pick what gives me 4 under there. So what would that be? 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1, which is 5. You can do that all on your calculator. I'm just doing it without a calculator. There's a good chance you might need to know domain and range, right? 2, 1, 3, 3, 6, 5. You see how it's still the same shape? Domain is never going to be all real numbers on a square root graph. The domain of this would be negative 1 to infinity. The range would be 0 to infinity, because it starts at 0 and goes up. The domain of this would be 2 to infinity, and now it's moved up 1, which means my range has also moved from 1 to infinity. Are we close to being done on this? We've only got one more page. Whew.
No, you get, yeah, one more, sorry.
What? Unit 3 review. This is only Unit 2. On the test? Review? So you have to do them. I could just start the final tomorrow if you want.
No. We gotta go over this already.
I think I gave you random ones on this, right? What were the ones I told you to do on this?
A, E, and G.
A, E, and G. Domain and range, I feel like we've done domain and range a lot, so I hope that you're feeling pretty good about domain and range.
You don't need to rewrite.
The domain and range of this one, it goes on forever. Do you agree with me on that? It's all real numbers for both of them. Any polynomial function, arrows go both directions, all real numbers. E, symmetry with the x-axis, the y-axis, or the origin. That's all about folding over. Can you fold this over the y-axis and it matches up perfectly? No. Can you fold this over the x-axis and it matches up perfectly? No. Can you fold this from here to here and it matches up perfectly? No. So that's none on that one. And the intercepts. This one you're just looking at it and telling me where it crosses. Do you agree it crosses at -3, 0, and 3? Yeah. And the y-intercept is also 0? Yeah. Oh my gosh, that wasn't so bad.
So can you write the intercepts so that you just write x equals negative 3, x equals 0, x equals 3, and then y
What?
equals
That
3?
would work. Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This thing took me like talk the entire hour. Sorry, what?
For G, the intercepts, I had x intercepts negative 3 and 3.
But also at 0. Like they don't have a dot there, but it also crosses at 0 there, right? So you would have to include that.
And that's it for intercept.
Well, there's also y-intercepts. It says, so y-intercept would also be 0 because it crosses there. But intercepts means x and y-intercepts. Okay? I wanted to look through the unit test, but we've taken up the entire